Coalition is what
Compound Coalition. That's do we have an episode number or?
This is probably going to be...
Austin will figure it out. He'll put some flashy stuff in there. I'm here with Ed Hubble from Iridium Solutions.
Hi.
That's when you talk.
I'm also the Canadian. You call this one the Canadian episode.
Or Snowbird.
The
Snowbird.
Yeah.
Because you guys are French, right?
Yeah. Half French, half English.
Is that an insult? I thought I was insulting you when I said that.
You know, if that had been able to stick the first time we met, I probably wouldn't come back.
Does Trudeau know you're here? Does Trudeau, what's his name? Trudeau?
Well, I hope not.
Got it. Are we going to get a cease and desist from the Canadian government? You saw that. You know what I'm talking about,
I know exactly
right?
what you're talking about. I won't talk about anything that would make that happen.
Cool. So you kind of like Iridium Solution kind of came out of fucking nowhere, really fast. Started seeing content, and I didn't even know it was you. Well, actually, for a while, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And it's really, it looks good.
Thank you.
The content's good. The video's good. Whoever's doing the social media, it's definitely working. What do you do? What is Iridium Solutions?
It started as oil and gas inspection. So I was like, that's what I've done for 20 years, right? And so when I stopped working for other people and started working for myself, I was like, well, I need to have a business, right? I grew up in small business. I'm a goldsmith when I was 7 years old. That's what my father did. And so I learned about small business there. And I was like, I'm tired of paying, 43% income tax. I'd rather have a business and then, find a way to grow. So I stopped doing, non-destructive testing for other people, started the business, and originally it was Iridium Inspection Services Limited was the name. And it was about 2 weeks, and everyone I talked to was like, how do you spell that? How do you write that down? That's too many words.
Why Iridium?
So as an industrial radiographer, the isotope that we use to take x-rays of welds is Iridium-192.
Got it. Okay. And there's the sat phone Iridium also, right? Does it have anything to do?
So the Iridium Satellite Network. No, happy coincidence.
They just had a cool name.
Yeah. And so when I was looking at business names, I needed something memorable, something that like there wasn't going to be a lot of competition for, and anything to do with industrial inspection or whatever. That was just way overplayed to the point that companies were smashing two words together, and whatever word it came up, whatever synergistic term it came up with, that's what they were using. And I was like, I don't need to be like that.
Got it. 43%. So you guys are pretty much in line with the United States. It seems like I hear Canadian prepper say things, and he speaks as though he's a U.S. citizen for the most part. He always, calls us, North America. But I think down here, having never been to Canada, we have this idea like, hey, you're from Canada, do you know Bob? Right. we don't realize how big and how far. What we hear of Canada is the gun law stuff and the trucker stuff and Trudeau, but that's like the smallest little area of the landmass, right? You're far away from there.
Everything in your world is what you let in, right? And so you can be as remote as I am, and all the bullshit with the gun laws and Trudeau can be a big part of your world, or it cannot be.
Right. So what are you doing with your company? Like now, if you're not doing destructive testing and gas, oil, pipeline stuff, what are you transitioning towards? Where's it going?
Right. We are. So the part that was never public before I sort of brought everything public is from a security standpoint, which I've been doing for a while. I had contracts with different parts of the government and smaller agencies and some international stuff, teaching people about radiation protection, one, and then two, doing, let's say, non-destructive evaluation on sensitive items. So things would be brought in, be like, hey, we need to know this, this, and this about this thing. I have all the tickets. And so I was able to do that. And so that went from being a really quiet business to like, well, maybe there's some way that I can open this up and help more people. And, it started with, well, I'm a firearms instructor, right? And that's a different thing in Canada, right? If you're American, you're thinking, oh, it teaches, CCW classes. Look, in Canada, to get a firearms license, you need to take a class from an instructor from the Canadian Firearms Program. And what you're going to learn in that class is the different types of firearm actions, how to safely store them, and by safely they mean unloaded, and then how to pick up any rifle or shotgun and then make it unloaded. It's a non-firing class, so the bar is not super high, but it's a 10-hour class, and there's a 50-question multiple choice exam, and it is what it is. So I started doing that. That's on the civilian side, but when you're doing that, all of a sudden people are like, hey, well, what's next? And having trained tactical response a lot, I was like, well, there is a path. You may not want to like it because it's the path for it's the narrower path for most people, even in America who are into guns. It's narrow casting. In Canada, far less people are into the idea, the concept of defensive tactics with firearms. And quite frankly, most of the people who think they are in it to, buy whatever they're told to buy, whatever new flashy gun and such, whatever gear. So, not what I wanted to do, but if you have ways of helping people, soon enough they're asking for different things. And so the business went from being a really quiet thing where every once in a while I would go places and do things and help people. And some of that, whatever, I can't really talk about, but what I didn't want was to be just disappear into obscurity and not ever be able to affect people like around me. I'd have lots of times where I was going to other places and helping people, but like, well, what about the people who live in the same town? What about my neighbors? What about them? And so now the sites, because we have 3 websites. There's iridiumsolutions.ca, which stands for .Canada, iridiumtraining.ca, and iridiumindustrial.ca. So it's split up a bit better now. And we sell CBRN equipment, so gas masks and other sort of radiological protection stuff. We sell medical supplies, and we sell some tactical equipment, but I'm trying to focus on what I want. There's lots of places that are be able to sell tactical equipment, and the core is the training that we're offering, and it's sort of vacillated in different directions. Like I made this public facing about 2 months before the whole Russia-Ukraine thing spun up, and right as COVID was turning into what it is currently. And so I've had to, as soon as I had to come out of the ring swinging and then ducking and weaving really quickly. And so it's been fun ish. You were a big part of, hey, like, why aren't you monetizing this? That was always like, hey, look what I'm doing. You're like, why aren't you monetizing it? Like, look, I'm up here doing this. Why aren't you monetizing it? Like, why don't 10,000 people know about it?
Or 100,000, right? 10,000 is just you don't even get monetized. But the content's good. It's easy to look at.
Thank you.
I don't scroll past it, and I won't look at Instagram like this, right? But I don't scroll past it. Yeah. And then you're good at tagging me, right? Most people tag me, and I don't even see it. Right. But I share you. Like, your content's better than what I put out, and a lot of it has my shit in it, so I always share it. And even like when it's not my stuff, when you're putting up Mira stuff or whatever, like, the content's good.
Thank you.
Whoever's like, the content is good, but whoever is building it is also really good. So yeah, it's you need to do that. So if you don't want to sell you need to do that for somebody that will pay you to do it.
On every one of those Instagram posts, if there's no video, if it's just a picture and there's words below it, usually on average, I've tracked this, it takes me about 45 minutes to write that post.
Yes, and you're good at copyright. I don't. Like, my shit, I read my shit days later and I'm like, holy shit, I don't even know what I wrote. Like, I fat finger. If you get a message, anybody sees a message from me and it's got a bunch of B's in the middle, just remove the B's. It'll make sense.
I still laugh on the internet, and there was one recently where I know someone's just finding you because they're like, his grammar's terrible. I'm like,
yeah,
you never met him.
Yeah, just wait.
It doesn't get better.
Somebody on the internet doesn't like me? I can't imagine that.
It's a great filter for me because I deal with lots of law enforcement agencies and our military and that, and you'll get people who in their world, in their paradigm, they're the shit, right? But it's an easy metric, and it always was with tactical response too. If I could drop James Yeager or John Willis and just look and see the reaction. If the reaction is like, I don't know that guy. You met him? No, but I just, you hear things. Okay, copy that. You probably don't like me either.
Right.
So we don't need to do business.
Yeah.
Easy. So thanks for that. For being that
The
personality.
qualifier,
Yeah, that I could just drop and be like, what do you think? And if they're like, no idea, I'm like, cool, all right, well, let's keep talking.
Yeah. So what's next? Where are you going? What do you want to do with this?
So I think Iridium Solutions as it is should probably have a American side to it. There should be some crossover between the Canadian side and the American side. And I don't need to be wholesaling and then reselling equipment that that I can buy out of America and then try to sell back to Americans, because the exchange rate is just murderously high, right? And so I think we need to be delivering really good content. We just worked on a film project. Me and my partner, who's got a different page, it did different things, and that was good. There's probably more of that's coming. Cool. And it's a really good way of getting in. And all the guys in the film are younger guys. Like they're up and comers. So that's interesting. Training. So a lot of people probably don't know this, but I'm a registered educational partner with the Committee on Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, which is, that's the sort of civilian side version of TCCC. It focuses more on, the every person demographic, where TCCC is all, military aged men and women. And I wrote and teach a course on pre-hospital trauma care. And in my part of the world, which is northern BC, I'm the only one who will do it for the public. There's a few other people or organizations who are doing it in Canada, but they're all health services or fire departments and stuff like that, or the special forces. And so one of the things that I've been able to do in a very short period of time is help change the mindset when it comes to, hey, civilians are the ones who are calling the EMS system. So it would be great if they could stabilize that patient for the 10 minutes it takes the EMS to get there. They're always the first responder. And it would be great if they knew, so how to do those basic things and how to do a really good 911 call. One of the things that we got from scenario-based training, which I've done a lot of over the years, is you look for the things that people won't practice. Nobody practices a 911 call. Fuck, nobody. In fact, most of you who are watching this would be very scared about the accidentally triggering a 911 call on your cell phone, right? And so it's the thing we need to get in and give people the permission, the unlock codes, like, yeah, you can do this. So that when, there's a car crash or a logging accident or whatever it is, instead of you being the person holding the phone going, I wish I could do something, you can just go ahead and put that phone down and do something.
Right.
That's important. And then, and the reason I'm here today or this weekend is to talk about tactical radiation protection, which, spoiler alert, it's not.
You're fucked.
Yeah. You're either fucked or you're not.
Buy your IOStat. You don't need a whole lot of it.
You're not going to buy your way out of this problem in very real terms. There's a few things you can buy that'll help give you information. And the purpose of you having more information, being more informed about what the situation is so that you will panic less and your psychology will be supported. And, when you're in your house for the 2 weeks that you need to be in your house with all the plastic up there, you and your family or whoever is with you, your loved ones, one of you won't go crazy and just run out the door and compromise everybody. Because that's what's going to happen.
Shielding, filtering. Like, if you really think this is coming, why don't you pile some earth up around your walls? Like, if we're not doing that, I mean,
yeah. But
how serious are you about it?
Like wrap cellophane around the outside of your house, lock you and your family in there. Consensually, of course. Turn off the power, turn off the water. Okay? And go 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. Or just turn the power off for 24 hours. Yeah.
I don't want toilets that flush, because your toilets aren't going to flush. And if you think something's going to kill you, it's going to be that you didn't think about where do I poop when no one can leave the house. In fact, we're all in the same room to keep the heat.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the thing that I think most people, especially right now, could use a serious dose of reality when it comes to this big specter of radiation. I mean, I've been in radiation emergencies, source emergencies, where I've ran up to radioactive isotopes and had to grab them with 1.5 meter tongs and put them into a I've been stress inoculated against it to a point where it doesn't really scare me. And I'm not a nuclear physicist or anything, right?
What do you dress like when you do that? Like, what does that look like?
This.
Like this.
There's no point in anything else. Humans aren't tanks. You can't put enough lead on you to be able to be shielded from it and still move.
If it's gone bad, how long until you know it's gone bad?
The real answer is it depends. How bad? What type? Did you ingest it? Did it just pass through you? Like, was it just X-ray or gamma ray energy that has saturated you? And in a couple of years you're going to have leukemia. Is it that? Did you drink contaminated water and it's poisoning your kidneys and your liver, and in a couple of weeks they're shutting down?
So everybody wants to buy potassium iodide.
Sure they do.
Tell them, and it does have a purpose.
Yep.
But a very, very narrow purpose. What is that purpose?
The purpose is to fill your thyroid up with clean iodine before you fill it up with dirty iodine. Your thyroid likes to suck up iodine. They go together, right? Like peanut butter and jam, or whatever, peanut butter and honey.
And tuna fish. Peanut butter and tuna fish.
What the fuck?
Cocaine and ladies.
Yeah, okay.
It's from a movie.
Okay.
Cocaine and waffles? It was waffles. Tuna fish and ladies.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. So they like to commingle. But if you're going to be eating food that's contaminated or drinking water that's contaminated, it's the best defense. Filling your thyroid up with a bunch of iodine isn't good for you. There's negative consequences. So like this isn't the deal where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna prophylactically take potassium iodide all the time just so I'm good. That's not the way it works. And also, since nuclear disasters in Fukushima, a lot of the fish that you're consuming occasionally will have higher levels of radiation anyways. Radiation, from a evolutionary standpoint, radiation, like from the sun, from cosmic radiation, is what drives evolution. We're sitting in low-level radiation fields all the time. It's part of life. So I really don't want people to think that it's like this boogeyman that's going to kill them.
I think it's great for movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that thing that could possibly be there, and it's uncontrollable, and you don't have any control over it. And gas masks just look fucking sexy.
Sure.
So, you have gas masks here with you?
Yeah, I brought a couple.
Are we gonna have guys run an obstacle course with a gas mask on?
I'm gonna do a giveaway for one of them, and the person has to do some shit with it in order to wearing it.
So whoever wins it better be able to do some push-ups.
They're gonna do. Yeah, we'll talk about what it's gonna. I don't want.
You have to qualify to win the gas mask.
Nope, they'll have to wear it, but it'll depend because men have beards, right? And some don't, but
some women do,
right? If you're gonna do gas mask stuff, I always say like, hey, you better have a shave kit in there. Everybody that you see on the internet who's put their gas mask on and they're like, they're doing the positive pressure or negative pressure test. They're like, look, I still got a seal. It's like, okay, cool. So gas masks are not for like gamma radiation. They're for particulate radiation, but a dust mask will stop particulate radiation. By definition, it's a particle. Right. Gas masks are for chemical warfare attacks. And some of these chemicals use what's called capillary action. Like you dip a wick in oil, it sucks it up, right? What do you think your beard hair is sticking out of there? Fuck it. The wet, oily chemical gets on there and just wicks itself all the way up in there. Problem, right?
Plus, modern times on an actual battlefield, anything that is being used now is going to have an agent in there that the gas mask is rendered useless after 15 minutes or so anyways. Doesn't it actually eat the gas mask away? Don't they have something that just melts?
The gas masks, the real ones are made of butyl rubber, of some kind of butyl rubber, which is very resistant to most chemicals, most alkalies, stuff like that. But yes, that's the other thing that I think civilians need to understand when they're getting on a gas mask buying craze. Like in combat and in hazardous materials, these articles are one-use articles. Like we'll go and do a thing and then take all this shit and throw it in the garbage. And you're like, that's like $2,000 worth of PPE, and all you did was go outside for 10 minutes. Yes. So there's a level of realism that you have to be like, okay, we can afford one gas mask and one, level C suit and gloves and boots and tape for each person. Yeah, cool. You get to go outside one time. Now, of course, everybody, and I mean, we're at a self-reliance festival where people are into preparedness, right? And everybody, well, not everybody, but people tend to be more of a DIY solution, right? And so people are going to like, well, how can I decontaminate it? Because decon, right? It's a thing, right? Yep, it's a thing. So, and water is great for decontamination of most things. But what you don't understand is it's like a swimming pool's worth of water to decontaminate something. What are you going to do with your swimming pool's worth of contaminated water now?
So is it viable? I mean, could we decontaminate gas masks?
You can decontaminate entire people, but you need to be able to put that water in a hole that no one else is going to get to, and those whatever the threat isn't going to affect the rest of your stuff. So you have to have a plan to deal with the waste that you make. And like here, you have equipment, you have manpower, you've got it at a level where you can actually affect that. Most people who might live in an apartment who are ordering or like buying a gas mask, you have to realize that's a one-use item. That's like your one free life on whatever video game you play. Don't spend it cheaply. Like that has to be at the end. And I tell people like that's the last thing. Like you want to stay in your house, you want to button that thing up, you want to have all the food, all the water, and ways to stay warm enough to survive, and ways to poop safely without everyone getting disease. And when that becomes non-viable, now something so that you can get into a vehicle and leave.
So how battened up do we want the house?
Fully. What I want to see is I want to see plastic over everything, all the windows, doors, intakes, outlets, and then depending on the size of the house, most houses you're going to take one room, you're going to leave that window open, you're going to put really good quality furnace filters or some sort of filtration material over that window to prevent particles from coming in. But that room is an air exchange chamber now. Nobody goes in and out of that room.
Also contaminated.
Yeah, you consider that contaminated.
So ideally, a HEPA filter of some kind, like an actual, bunker filter.
Yep, absolutely.
Something hand cranked or something.
Yeah, and the shitty thing about the entire scenario, and let's be completely honest, in most cases, these scenarios, especially as they're put out on the internet, are theoretical and unproven. And the solutions that you're being given are theoretical and unproven.
So we're close to Clarksville here. We're, an hour from Clarksville. We're 90 minutes to Nashville. Nuclear missile, ground zero, boom. We're going to catch some of that shit.
Yep.
How long till we can go outside?
It depends.
Right. Best case scenario.
Next day.
Based on?
If you're going to die, you'll be dead anyways.
Got it. All right.
Everyone wants a solution like, hey,
yeah,
how do we win this fight?
Right.
Don't be in the fight. That's how you win that fight.
Yeah. Live someplace where a missile's not coming. I think a missile's coming everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, with that said, though, a missile was supposed to hit us every year of my life for the last 50 years, except the last couple of years. Right. And it hasn't happened. So, I mean, you can live in fear all of your life, or you can make a shitload more money and build a very comfortable bunker, right? You can live in fear, or you can operate in, the positivity and just build the mass money and be in a better position.
What do other people in the preparedness arena tell you about this subject? Like, what do you hear generally?
I don't really have this conversation with people who actually know shit about it, right? Bear knows some shit about it.
Absolutely.
We've not had the conversation in depth.
Yeah.
You know definitely more than anybody I know about it.
Okay.
I know CBRN guys back when it was called,
NBC.
But prior to, and that was combatants, that was NSW and stuff. Yeah. But the conversation wasn't, hey, we need to hold up in place. We're at our retreat or wherever.
Right. We've got a log train, and what we need to do is get a tracked.
Right. What I know of NBC is reading old American Survival Guide magazines, and who knows who the fuck wrote those. Yeah. So I don't really know. Yeah. I have a lot of gas masks. They look badass, right?
Yeah, they do.
I bought during Kufis, some company, I think they were out of Canada. My buddy was in Canada, and they have this little faceplate that has these filters, right? And it's for removing lead.
Yep.
So we bought like a fucking ton of that
Yep.
shit. And I put it on and walked around the shop for about 30 minutes. And I lasted about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just picking and pulling orders, right?
Yeah.
And my lungs fucking hurt for the next 3 days. And I wasn't even through real filters. It's like a thin paper. It'd be a great faceplate for making breathing harder while working out or something like that.
And that's where that concept
and
comes
I
from.
felt that shit for 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's not even a real gas mask.
Right.
Like people have no idea, man.
Right.
And like if you can't run a mile, we got a lot of shit to talk about before we discuss gas masks.
And so like for civilians, that's why I like gas masks as that get in your car and drive option, because people think that their car has like, because it's solid, that like, you know, it'll be a barrier to the outside air, and that's just not the case.
Correct.
There's like,
right.
You ever driven through wildfire smoke, and like you ever driven into like an industrial site, like,
well,
oh,
you can smell you can smell the weed the dude's smoking next to you.
Right. Yeah. And so like in that scenario, you're sitting, right? You don't have to carry ladders, you're not clearing bush, you don't have to like, you know, ascend or descend up buildings or structures. Industrially, we would use the industrial grade full face respirators, and they will have 2 cartridges on them, right? And
fireman stuff, draggers, stuff like that.
yeah, and the problem with the industrial ones is there's more restriction of airflow because the cartridges tend to be smaller and the openings tend to be smaller, but you get 2 of them. But I would use them inside boilers, climbing up and down inside boilers. It's hot. It's plus 40 Celsius and whatever that is in, you know, freedom units. But it's a confined space, and you're wearing all this extra equipment. It's tough on the psychology. It's tough on your head, right? Because now you're all restricted. You can't move. You're having a hard time breathing. The first thing your brain is like, no, this is a problem. We're panicking, right? And if you haven't indoctrinated yourself into that a little bit, or inoculated yourself against it, I guess might be a better way of saying it, then that stress response is in your head waiting to show its ugly head at the wrong time, right? You don't rise to the occasion. You default to the highest level of training you've mastered under stress. And so that's an important aspect of it. I think everybody who wants to own a gas mask or the industrial respirators, because I think if all we need is to like get out of the house because, you know, it's on fire or whatever and get into a vehicle, then industrial respirators are fine, and they're a lot less money, right? So if it's not, you know, some sort of, you know, deadly chemical warfare agent or toxic industrial material or radioactive fallout, you don't need the really expensive stuff. I like to set people up with sort of like a tiered system, right? Like, hey, attached to every fire extinguisher, you should have at least those escape respirators, which is the ones, the bite block respirators. They're good for 5 minutes. They'll filter most stuff out. It doesn't matter if you have a beard or whatever, you just breathe through them as you get out. They're cheap. You can have a lot of them there. Or half masks, depending on how your family is, because those ones can be a little heavy. And you should have a plan to like go from there to the full face respirators. And then, you know, there should be some amount of the you know, the military grade stuff, assuming that, you know, at some point you might have to do a small amount of that kind of work, rather than being like, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, you know, 7 $300 gas masks and, you know, 40 of the $100 a piece cartridges and just do everything with the full CBRN stuff.
So I can't just buy old $30 Israeli gas masks or like the Polish gas masks that you see all over the surplus market. For the most part, those are old surplus. They are not serviceable, probably. Jeff said when they were getting ready to deploy and the CBRN guys came through and actually tested their shit, 75% of it failed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're just buying a relic for the most part.
You can buy them.
You can buy them. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but they are not serviceable.
No.
Most likely.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I try to teach people to escape the fantasy of what the scenario is going to be. Right? Assume that if this is the scenario, Murphy's Law is in full effect, and whatever you didn't prepare for, that's the emergency you're getting. So you have a shitty gas mask. Okay, it doesn't work. And you don't know that because you never tested it. So you're operating in it, you're doing all the things, you're pulling all the gear out, you're loading up your bug out, whatever, you're getting your family out, and then you drive for 10 minutes and you stop breathing because the respiratory antagonist got inside your mucous membranes and just shut them down. Well, now your family's in a whole different emergency. You're no longer in your house. Everybody's in a panic. Everybody's wearing all this extra gear. I mean, we train to do the most basic medical stuff like putting on tourniquets in gas masks and watch people go from 15 to 20 seconds to be able to just whip out a tourniquet and put it on to a minute immediately. And I'm not talking about the civilian who's never done it before. I'm talking about trained people.
Right. Just because of the stress?
Because you can't see. You go to look down and your chin normally goes like this, but it only goes like here now. You're like, oh fuck, I can't even like look down. So like, how am I going to make this work? Figuring that out on the fly, having to reset your brain from it's like, oh, we're doing this thing. Nope, stop, think, stop, think. Doing that a couple times in the middle of any task will just slow your ability to do that task down, right? And so, yeah, it's a real consideration.
All right. So what are you telling him tomorrow?
I'm going to teach people the different kinds of radiation, what they need to worry about. So there'll be a brief overview of that. One thing that I do advocate is that at least every household has some sort of radiation detector, so a survey meter or a personal dosimeter, and that's because you can use it to determine where the radiation is coming from. You can use it to determine if the food or water that you're about to ingest is radioactive. You can use it to gather data that lets you make good decisions, because none of our senses will detect radiation.
And what does that piece of equipment cost?
It ranges from you used to be able to get used ones on the market, like the old civil defense ones. Yeah, big time. And you could probably still find some of those somewhere. Be aware, most of them don't work very well, and they were built for atomic levels of radiation, so that their measurement starts really high. Okay, and then some of the really cheap ones that you can buy on eBay or Amazon that are made by the Chinese right now. I've tested them, and I have some examples here to show people. They're $100 or $200. Their radiation measurement is only very low. And so something that's like, life-threatening really quickly, they won't even measure. It'll just show like, no, it's life-threatening. You're like, well, how life-threatening? And if I go behind, this piece of concrete, how much less life-threatening? Right. You won't be able to get any of that information. But realistically, 600 to pick your poison, thousands of dollars.
Miracell one?
Miracell's one, that would be on the low end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
I'm a mirror safety dealer, and a lot of their stuff is great, but you have to understand that a lot of that stuff had specific uses, and it's being repurposed for the civilian with a preparedness mindset.
Got it.
Okay.
What's that piece of equipment weigh? The one that we do want.
They're light. Like personal dosimeters are like capable ones are small. They're about the size and weight of a cell phone.
And what powers it?
Regular batteries. Typically speaking, it'll be alkaline batteries.
Okay.
Some of them use rechargeables, but I like them. I like to be able to because
we could put a lithium battery in it.
Some you can, some you can't.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they're running off 1.5 volts. Again, it's an it depends, because it's such a niche part of all industries that each manufacturer gets to make everything a little bit proprietary.
Got it.
If you're in the $600 plus range for what you're getting, it's going to work, and you're going to just buy what you need for them. So the dosimeters that I run, which are made by a company called Mirion, and they're from the 90s. These little, and I'll show them to you. These little digital dosimeters. They're worth about $500 a piece, and they take specific cell batteries, Renata 2045s, I think. And so like you have to go out and buy the specific batteries, and so I have this piece of equipment, it needs these batteries.
Right.
I'm gonna go buy 1,000 of them or whatever, right? Whatever, because they go bad in 10 years, whatever you'll use for 10 years. And I'll talk to people probably afterwards about specific questions about that. And, people tend to message me like, is this good? I'm like, can you afford it?
Right.
Like,
yeah, does it matter?
Well, like if you're taking a loan out for it at 5%, no, in that case, just get on your radio and wait for the, whoever the civil defense, the local civil defense, the news, or the fire station, they tend to have them, whatever emergency services, wait for them to go up the horn and be like, hey, there's radiation coming from the south.
Right.
If you can't afford that, then don't go into debt for any of this shit.
And people listening, they can buy this stuff from you?
Some of it. The dosimeters, I haven't found good quality made in America dosimeters that I can purchase from a manufacturer and then resell to civilians. A lot of that is actually marketed towards industrial and sort of nuclear workers, and so there's no advantage in getting that from me.
Got it. What can they buy from you?
You could buy your Mira safety products from me if you're in Canada. So
what if they're not in Canada?
Buy it from Mira.
Okay.
There's like, it's more expensive to get it from me if you're not in Canada because, the whole customs train. Now, that being said, because down here things tend to get cleaned out, there are times when I've got something that isn't available in America because it hasn't showed up at Mira, in which case, if you're willing to pay the extra price, that's on you, and I won't say no. But the other thing that I sell is medical equipment.
All right.
And so if you want good quality, high-end supplies to put in your first aid kit, individual first aid kit, trauma kit, that's what I've got.
Can they buy training from you?
Absolutely.
Right on. And how do they find you?
iridiumsolutions.ca.
All right. And that's you. You're on Facebook also?
So, the Instagram is the Iridium Group.
The Iridium Group.
All of them together.
Got it.
We have a presence on Facebook, but it's small.
Right on.
Basically, I just post stuff on the SOE back page.
Are you on TikTok?
No.
You should be on TikTok.
I know.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting down, man. Lot to think about. If you're listening to this, it's probably a complete opposite direction of what you thought. And hopefully we'll see you out here. And by the time you hear this, hopefully you were here and you've put hands on it. And if you're thinking you want this stuff, research it, right? Get in there. There's a ton of content, and Ed will interact with you. If you ask questions, somebody will answer you.
It's true.
All right. Thanks.
All right.